The gunshot that killed Willa Sawyer's husband echoed through her memory every time she approached the weathered gate of the Flint Creek Ranch, though she had never actually heard it herself. It was August of 1883, and the California sun beat down mercilessly on San Bernardino as Willa gripped her worn leather satchel tighter, trying to steady her breathing before knocking on the door of the sprawling ranch house. She had traveled 3 days by stagecoach from Sacramento, where the memories of Robert's death 2 years prior still haunted every street corner. The telegram in her bag offered her a position as housekeeper to one Vincent Flint, a rancher who needed someone capable of managing his household while he focused on expanding his cattle operation. At 24, Willa knew she should feel grateful for the opportunity, but gratitude felt like a luxury she had forgotten how to afford. The door swung open before her knuckles could make contact with the wood, and Willa found herself staring up at a man whose presence seemed to fill the entire doorframe. Vincent Flint stood well over 6 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to suggest years of physical labor. His dark hair curled slightly at the ends where it touched his collar, and his eyes were an unusual shade of green that reminded Willa of the river stones she used to collect as a child. He appeared to be in his late 20s, maybe 30 at most, with sun-weathered skin that spoke of countless hours working under the California sky. "Mrs. Sawyer, I presume," Vincent said, his voice a rich baritone that carried none of the gruffness she had expected. He stepped back, gesturing for her to enter. "Your timing is impeccable. I was just about to give up on civilization entirely and resign myself to living in squalor." The interior of the ranch house surprised Willa with its spaciousness. Large windows let in generous amounts of light, illuminating hardwood floors that clearly needed attention and furniture covered in a fine layer of dust. Books lined shelves on nearly every wall, an unexpected sight in a rancher's home. But it was the state of the kitchen visible through an archway that made Willa's housekeeper instincts flare with both horror and purpose. "I apologize for the condition of things," Vincent continued, seeming genuinely embarrassed as he ran a hand through his hair. "My last housekeeper left 6 months ago to care for her sister in Los Angeles, and I have been managing poorly on my own ever since. My foreman keeps threatening to knock me unconscious and drag me to town to find help, but I have been too busy with the cattle to make the trip myself." Willa set her satchel down carefully, assessing the work ahead of her with the practiced eye of someone who had spent years maintaining a household. "I have managed worse, Mr. Flint. If you will show me to my quarters, I can begin this afternoon. Please call me Vincent. And I insist you take today to settle in and rest from your journey. Tomorrow will be soon enough to tackle this disaster I call a home." He picked up her bag before she could protest, leading her through the house to a modest but clean room on the ground floor. "This was meant to be a guest room, but it has a good view of the garden, such as it is, and its own entrance to the back porch. I hope it will be comfortable for you." The room was indeed pleasant, with a sturdy bed, a wardrobe, and a small writing desk positioned near the window. Willa noticed that unlike the rest of the house, this room had been thoroughly cleaned, the furniture polished, fresh linens on the bed. The gesture touched something in her chest that she immediately tried to suppress. "It is more than adequate, thank you," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I appreciate your consideration." Vincent set her bag down gently and moved toward the door, then paused. "Mrs. Sawyer, I want you to know that I run a respectful household. My ranch hands are good men, and I will not tolerate any behavior that makes you uncomfortable. You have my word on that." Willa nodded, studying his face for any hint of insincerity and finding none. "I appreciate that, Mr. Flint." "Vincent," he corrected gently. I will let you rest now. The kitchen is yours to command, though I warn you the pantry is embarrassingly bare. I will arrange for one of the hands to take you into town tomorrow for supplies." After he left, Willa sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. The room smelled of beeswax and lavender, and through the window she could see rolling hills dotted with cattle in the distance. It was beautiful in a way that made her throat tight. She did not deserve beautiful things. She had not deserved Robert's love, and she certainly had not deserved to survive when he had not. The thought came automatically. A familiar companion that had lived in her mind since that terrible day when the sheriff arrived at her door in Sacramento. Robert had been shot during a bank robbery, an innocent bystander caught in crossfire meant for others. He had died instantly, they told her, as if that information would somehow soften the blow. But Willa knew the truth buried beneath their sympathetic words. She had been arguing with Robert that morning about money, about his long hours at the mill, about her own feelings of inadequacy as a wife. The last words she had spoken to him had been sharp and unkind, and then he was gone, and she would never have the chance to take them back. She did not deserve peace. She did not deserve comfort, and she certainly did not deserve the way her heart had skipped when Vincent Flint smiled at her. The next morning, Willa woke before dawn out of habit and found the kitchen even worse in the growing light than it had appeared the previous day. She rolled up her sleeves and began with hot water and strong soap, scrubbing away months of neglect with a determination that bordered on ferocity. By the time Vincent appeared in the doorway, she had already made significant progress, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. "Good Lord," Vincent said, staring around the transformed kitchen. "How long have you been awake?" "Long enough," Willa replied, pouring him a cup of coffee without being asked. "I made oatmeal as well, though I am afraid your provisions are limited. I will need to make a comprehensive list for the supply run." Vincent accepted the coffee with what appeared to be genuine gratitude, wrapping both hands around the cup as if it were precious. "You are a miracle worker, Mrs. Sawyer. I had forgotten what real coffee tasted like." "It is just coffee, Mr. Flint. Nothing miraculous about it." "Vincent," he reminded her again, his green eyes catching hers over the rim of his cup. "And I disagree. The small comforts we provide each other in this life are often the most miraculous of all." Willa turned away, busying herself with the dishes to avoid his gaze. The kindness in his voice felt unearned, like putting on clothes that belonged to someone else. She heard him set down his cup and move closer, though he maintained a respectful distance. "Mrs. Sawyer, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "You seem determined to work yourself to exhaustion. Is that how you ran your household in Sacramento?" The question caught her off guard, and she found herself gripping the edge of the wash basin harder than necessary. "I believe in earning my keep, Mr. Flint. You are paying me for a service, and I intend to provide it to the best of my ability." "I have no doubt of your ability," Vincent said carefully, "but I also do not expect you to martyr yourself in the process. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be human." Willa kept her eyes fixed on the soapy water. "I prefer to stay busy." She felt rather than saw him nod. "I understand that impulse. After my father died 5 years ago and left me this ranch, I worked from sunup to sundown for months, trying to prove to myself that I was worthy of his legacy. My foreman finally sat me down and told me that my father would have been more proud to see me living well than working myself into an early grave." "That is different," Willa said quietly. "You had something to prove yourself worthy of." "Some of us are simply trying to make amends for being unworthy in the first place." The silence that followed her words felt heavy. Willa wished she could take them back, horrified that she had revealed so much to a man she barely knew. But Vincent did not laugh or press for details. Instead, he said, "Everyone is worthy of kindness, Mrs. Sawyer, including themselves." He left before she could formulate a response, and Willa found herself staring at the space where he had stood, her chest tight with emotion she could not name. The supply run to San Bernardino was conducted by Miguel, Vincent's foreman, a weathered man in his 50s who had worked on the ranch since Vincent's father first broke ground. Miguel drove the wagon with easy confidence, pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the ranch's history as they traveled the dusty road into town. "Mr. Flint is a good man," Miguel said as they passed a creek lined with cottonwoods. "Treats everyone fair, pays decent wages, never asks more of his men than he is willing to do himself. But he is lonely, I think. This ranch is big and successful, but it is also empty. He needs more than just cattle and land to make a home." Willa kept her eyes on the road ahead. "I am sure Mr. Flint's personal life is his own business," Miguel chuckled. "True enough. But you will see what I mean soon enough. He has a way of carrying the weight of the world on those big shoulders of his, just like you carry your own weight. Maybe that is why he picked you from all those letters he received. Recognized a kindred spirit, perhaps." San Bernardino bustled with activity when they arrived, and Willa threw herself into the task of provisioning the ranch with single-minded focus. She selected flour and sugar, coffee and tea, dried beans and salt pork, fresh vegetables from a farmer's stand, and spices to add variety to meals. She chose carefully, conscious of the budget Vincent had provided but also determined to bring quality and care back to his household. At the general store, while Miguel loaded supplies into the wagon, the proprietor's wife engaged Willa in conversation. "You are working for Vincent Flint now, I hear. Good man, that one. Helped my husband and me when we had trouble with some suppliers last year. Did not ask for anything in return. This town is lucky to have him." "He seems very decent," Willa agreed, measuring out lengths of fabric for new kitchen curtains. "Decent does not cover half of it," the woman continued, warming to her subject. "When the Martinez family's barn burned down, Vincent organized a crew to rebuild it. When old Mrs. Chen got sick, he made sure she had everything she needed. And when those troublemakers from Los Angeles tried to intimidate the Chinese laundry owner, Vincent stood right there on the street and told them they would have to go through him first." She leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Between you and me, I have been hoping he would find a nice woman to settle down with. A man like that should not be alone." Willa felt her cheeks heat. "I am just his housekeeper, madam, nothing more." The woman gave her a knowing look that made Willa want to sink through the floorboards, but mercifully, Miguel called that they were ready to depart, and she escaped further interrogation. On the ride back to the ranch, Willa found herself thinking about what the storekeeper's wife had said. She tried to tell herself it did not matter, that Vincent's character and reputation were simply aspects of her employer that she should be aware of. But the truth was harder to ignore. Vincent Flint was kind, genuinely kind in a way that seemed effortless and natural. And Willa had no idea what to do with that kindness. That evening, she prepared a proper dinner for the first time, a hearty stew with fresh bread and vegetables. Vincent's expression when he sat down at the clean table set with actual plates and silverware instead of eating directly from a pot over the stove made her chest constrict unexpectedly. "Mrs. Sawyer, this is extraordinary," he said after his first bite. "I had forgotten what home cooking tasted like." "It is just stew, Mr. Flint, nothing extraordinary." "Vincent," he corrected once more, and this time there was a hint of playfulness in his tone. And I am beginning to suspect you have a very skewed perception of what constitutes ordinary, because this is definitely extraordinary." Despite herself, Willa felt the corners of her mouth twitch upward. "You are easily impressed, then. Or perhaps you are exceptional and refuse to acknowledge it." Vincent set down his spoon and looked at her directly. "May I ask you something, and will you promise to answer honestly?" Willa's brief moment of lightness evaporated. "I suppose. Why do you flinch every time I express gratitude? Why does every compliment seem to pain you?" She should have deflected. She should have made an excuse and retreated to her room. Instead, she found herself sinking into the chair across from him, her hands twisting in her lap. "Because I do not deserve them." "Why would you think that?" The words came pouring out before she could stop them. 2 years of guilt and grief finding an unexpected outlet. "Because the last words I spoke to my husband were cruel. Because we argued that morning about meaningless things, and I was so focused on my own petty concerns that I did not tell him I loved him before he left. Because he died thinking I was angry with him, and now I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Because I am the one who survived, and I do not know why I deserved that mercy when he did not." Silence filled the kitchen after her confession. Willa could not bring herself to look at Vincent, certain she would see judgment or pity in his eyes, and she was not sure which would be worse. "Mrs. Sawyer," Vincent said finally, his voice impossibly gentle, "may I tell you what I think, if you must? I think you loved your husband very much. I think you are a good person who had a bad morning and never got the chance to make it right. I think you are punishing yourself for being human, for having the same flaws and failings we all possess. And I think your husband, if he loved you as much as your grief suggests he did, would be heartbroken to know you are tormenting yourself this way." Willa finally looked up, and there was no judgment in Vincent's green eyes, only compassion. "You cannot possibly know that." "No, but I know what my father told me before he died. He said regret is a natural part of loss, but we should not let it consume us. He said the best way to honor those we have lost is to live well, to be kind, and to allow ourselves to accept kindness in return." Vincent paused, then added, "He also said that forgiveness starts with forgiving ourselves, and that is often the hardest forgiveness of all." Tears burned in Willa's eyes, and she blinked them back furiously. "I am sorry. This is highly inappropriate. You should not have to listen to your housekeeper's problems." "I am not listening as an employer," Vincent said. "I am listening as someone who understands what it means to carry guilt that does not belong to you." He stood and moved to the stove, ladling more stew into his bowl in what Willa recognized as a deliberate attempt to give her a moment to compose herself. "My father's last words to me were instructions about the ranch. We were in the middle of discussing water rights and grazing rotations when he simply stopped breathing. No final wisdom, no heartfelt goodbye, just business. For months, I tormented myself, thinking I should have known, should have said something meaningful. But the truth is, life rarely gives us the perfect moments we think we deserve. We do the best we can with what we are given, and we have to find a way to forgive ourselves for being imperfect." Willa wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "How did you manage it?" "The forgiveness. Daily practice," Vincent said, returning to his seat. "Every morning I wake up and remind myself that I am worthy of peace. That my father loved me, that I loved him, and that love does not require perfect final words to be real. Some days I believe it more than others, but I keep trying." He met her eyes again. "And I think you are worthy too, Mrs. Sawyer. I think you deserve kindness and peace and all the good things you keep pushing away. I think that is going to be my daily affirmation from now on, until you start believing it yourself." "That is absurd," Willa whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps." But I am a stubborn man, and I have decided this is how things are going to be." Vincent's expression softened into something that might have been a smile. "You are going to take care of this house, and I am going to make sure you understand your own worth. It seems like a fair arrangement to me." For the first time since Robert's death, Willa felt something crack in the armor of guilt she had built around herself. It was not much, just a hairline fracture, but it let in a sliver of light that both terrified and intrigued her. The following weeks settled into a rhythm that felt almost comfortable. Willa transformed the ranch house from a bachelor's neglected dwelling into a proper home. She scrubbed and polished, organized and decorated with small touches that made the space feel lived in rather than merely inhabited. Vincent, true to his word, began each morning by finding her and saying something kind, something aimed at chipping away at her conviction of unworthiness. "Good morning, Mrs. Sawyer. I hope you know that your presence here has made my life immeasurably better. Those curtains you made are beautiful. You have such a good eye for color. I noticed you fixed the squeaky hinge on the pantry door. Thank you for caring about the small details that make a house a home." At first, Willa deflected every comment, dismissing them as mere politeness. But Vincent was persistent in a way that was impossible to ignore. He did not just offer empty compliments. He noticed things. He paid attention. And slowly, against her better judgment, Willa began to look forward to those morning affirmations, even as they made her uncomfortable. She also began to notice things about Vincent. The way he treated his ranch hands with respect and fairness, never asking anyone to do work he would not do himself. The way he spent hours going over his books each evening, not because he was greedy, but because he took his responsibilities seriously. The way he loved his land with a passion that went beyond mere ownership, talking about the cattle and the grass and the water with the reverence most men reserved for family. One afternoon in mid-September, Willa was hanging laundry in the yard when she heard raised voices from the direction of the barn. Concerned, she moved closer and saw Vincent in conversation with two men she did not recognize. Their horses bore Los Angeles brands, and their clothing suggested they were not ranch hands but men of business. "I have told you before, Mr. Crawford, I am not interested in selling," Vincent was saying, his voice level but firm. "My answer has not changed." The taller of the two men, presumably Crawford, stepped closer in what Willa recognized as an intimidation tactic. "You are being foolish, Flint. Our offer is generous. This land would be better served as part of a larger operation." "My land serves me and my community just fine," Vincent replied, not backing down despite the man's aggressive posture. "And I am done discussing this. I will ask you to leave now." "You will regret this decision," Crawford said, his voice taking on a threatening edge. "There are ways of convincing stubborn men to see reason." Vincent's expression hardened. "If you are threatening me, Mr. Crawford, I suggest you reconsider. I am not alone here, and I am not without friends in this county. Now get off my property before I have Miguel escort you off." The men left, but not without dark looks and muttered curses. Willa waited until they had ridden away before approaching Vincent, who stood with his hands on his hips, staring after them with obvious frustration. "That did not sound pleasant," she said carefully. Vincent turned, and some of the tension left his shoulders when he saw her. "Land speculators from Los Angeles. They have been trying to buy up ranches in the area to create some kind of cattle empire. I have refused them 3 times now, and they are becoming more insistent." "Should you be worried?" "Probably," Vincent admitted. "But I am not selling. My father built this ranch from nothing. It provides good jobs for good people. I am not going to hand it over to men who only see dollar signs." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Willa had come to recognize as a sign of stress. I apologize if they frightened you." "I am not frightened," Willa said, surprised to find it was true. "But I am concerned for your safety. Men like that do not take rejection well." Vincent's expression softened. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Sawyer, but I can handle Crawford and his associates. I have dealt with worse." That evening, after dinner, Willa found herself lingering in the kitchen instead of retiring to her room as usual. Vincent sat at the table with his books, and the comfortable silence between them felt natural rather than awkward. Finally, she gathered her courage and spoke. "Mr. Flint, may I ask you something?" He looked up from his ledger, setting down his pen. "Vincent, and yes, of course." "Why did you hire me? You received many applications, I am sure. What made you choose a widow from Sacramento with no references from her previous position?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "Your letter was different from the others. Most applicants focused on their skills and experience, which is perfectly reasonable. But you wrote about wanting a fresh start, about needing a place where you could rebuild yourself. And I understood that need. After my father died, I felt lost, even though I had this entire ranch to ground me. I thought perhaps we could help each other. You could bring order to my household, and maybe I could provide a place where you could begin to heal." Willa felt that crack in her armor widen a little more. "That is very kind of you. It is not kindness, it is recognition." Vincent closed his ledger and gave her his full attention. "Mrs. Sawyer, can I tell you what I see when I look at you? I am not sure I want to know. I see someone strong, someone who has endured tremendous pain and kept going anyway. Someone who pours care and attention into everything she touches, from the curtains in the parlor to the meals she prepares. Someone who is far braver than she gives herself credit for." He paused. "And I see someone who deserves to be happy, even if she does not believe it yet." Willa found she could not hold his gaze. "You barely know me." "I know enough. And every day I learn more. Every day I am more certain that you are exactly the kind of person who makes the world better simply by being in it." Vincent stood, moving closer but still maintaining a respectful distance. "That is today's affirmation, by the way. Willa Sawyer makes the world better. I am going to keep saying it until you believe it." She looked up sharply. "You called me Willa. Is that all right?" It seemed time to move beyond formalities, given that we have been sharing a home for weeks now. Willa tested the sound of her name in his voice, finding it unexpectedly pleasant. "I suppose it is acceptable, but only if I can call you Vincent without you correcting me every single time." Vincent's smile transformed his entire face, and Willa felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. "Deal." The weeks that followed brought subtle changes to their relationship. They began taking meals together regularly, conversation flowing more easily as they grew comfortable with each other. Vincent started inviting Willa to sit with him in the evenings, and they would talk about everything from books to politics to their respective childhoods. Willa learned that Vincent had grown up on this ranch, that his mother had died when he was young, and that his father had raised him with a combination of tough love and deep affection. Vincent learned that Willa had been an only child, that she had loved to read as a girl, and that she still harbored dreams of someday writing stories of her own. "Why do you not write now?" Vincent asked one evening as they sat on the front porch, watching the sun set over the hills. "I am a housekeeper. I do not have time for such frivolous pursuits. Writing is not frivolous, and you could make time if you wanted to. I certainly would not object." Vincent turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Willa, you are allowed to have dreams. You are allowed to want things beyond mere survival." The use of her first name still sent a small thrill through her, even though it had been weeks since they dropped the formalities. "It feels selfish." "It is not selfish to be a complete person. It is necessary." Vincent reached out as if to take her hand, then seemed to think better of it, letting his hand fall back to his lap. "I would like to see you write, if you are willing to share. I bet you have wonderful stories in you." Willa felt tears prick her eyes, though she was not entirely sure why. "You have too much faith in me." "No, I have exactly the right amount of faith in you. You are the one who needs to catch up." October brought cooler weather and an unexpected problem. Several of Vincent's cattle went missing from the southern pasture, and the signs suggested they had not simply wandered off. Miguel found evidence of rustling, and when Vincent rode out to investigate, he discovered that 2 other ranchers in the area had experienced similar losses. "It is Crawford," Vincent said grimly over dinner that night. "He is trying to pressure me into selling by making it harder to maintain the ranch." Willa set down her fork, alarm rising in her chest. "That is illegal. Can you not go to the sheriff?" "The sheriff in San Bernardino is a good man, but he is spread thin and does not have proof. I am going to have to handle this myself." Vincent must have seen the worry in her expression because he added, "I am not going to do anything reckless. I am simply going to make it very clear to Mr. Crawford that I am not intimidated and I am not selling. Vincent, these men are dangerous. I know, but I am not going to let them run me off my own land." He reached across the table and took her hand, the first time he had touched her beyond the occasional accidental brush of fingers. His hand was warm and calloused, and Willa felt her breath catch. "I promise I will be careful, but I need you to promise me something too." "What?" "If anything happens to me, if Crawford or his men come here while I am gone, you take the wagon and you go straight to Miguel's house. His family will keep you safe until the sheriff can sort things out. Do not try to be brave. Do not try to protect the ranch. Just go. Promise me." Willa wanted to argue, but the intensity in Vincent's eyes stopped her. "I promise." Vincent squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. "Good. Now, I do not want to spend the rest of the evening talking about cattle thieves and land speculators. Tell me more about that story you have been working on." Willa blinked at the change of subject. "How did you know I was working on a story?" "I saw papers on your desk when I was fixing your window latch last week." "I did not read them," he added quickly, "but I recognized the look of someone who had been writing. It made me happy knowing you were pursuing something you love." The fact that he had noticed, that he cared, made Willa's throat tight. "It is probably terrible." "I doubt that very much. But terrible or wonderful, the important thing is that you are doing it. You are allowing yourself to want something, to create something. That is worthy, Willa. You are worthy." There it was again, his daily affirmation. Willa had stopped deflecting them weeks ago, had even started to let herself absorb them instead of batting them away like annoying insects. Now, sitting in the warm kitchen with Vincent's earnest green eyes fixed on her, she felt something fundamental shift inside her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything you have done for me, for seeing me when I could not see myself." Vincent's expression softened into something that made Willa's heart race. "You are easy to see, Willa. You shine whether you know it or not." The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them had named but both felt. Then Vincent cleared his throat and stood, breaking the spell. "I should let you rest. Thank you for another wonderful meal." After he left, Willa sat alone in the kitchen for a long time, her hand still tingling where Vincent had touched it. She was falling in love with him. The realization should have terrified her, should have sent her running back to Sacramento. But instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like coming home after a long journey. The problem was that she still did not believe she deserved it. She did not deserve Vincent's kindness, or his patience, or the way he looked at her like she was something precious. and she certainly did not deserve the happiness that seemed to bloom in her chest whenever he was near. That night, Willa lay in bed and thought about Robert. She had loved him, truly loved him, and his death had broken something in her that she thought could never be repaired. But loving Robert and loving Vincent were not mutually exclusive. She could honor Robert's memory while also allowing herself to feel something new. She could forgive herself for the argument that last morning while also accepting the possibility of future happiness. The realization made her cry, not from sadness but from relief. She was tired of carrying guilt like a stone around her neck. She was tired of believing she was unworthy of love or joy or peace. Maybe Vincent was right. Maybe forgiveness started with forgiving yourself. Maybe worthy was not something you earned, but something you chose to accept. The next morning, Willa woke with a sense of purpose she had not felt in years. She prepared breakfast as usual, but when Vincent appeared in the kitchen, she did something unprecedented. She met his morning affirmation with one of her own. "Good morning, Willa. I hope you know that your presence here has become essential to my happiness." "Good morning, Vincent. I hope you know that your kindness has changed my life." Vincent stopped in his tracks, his eyes widening with surprise and something that looked like joy. "Willa, I have been thinking about what you said, about forgiveness and worthiness and daily affirmations." She set down the pan she was holding and turned to face him fully. "I am not there yet. I am not sure I believe all the things you say about me, but I want to try. I want to stop punishing myself. I want to be the person you seem to think I am." Vincent crossed the kitchen in 3 long strides and took both her hands in his. "You already are that person. You have always been that person. You just needed to see it. Will you help me? Keep reminding me even when I forget." "Every single day," Vincent promised, "for as long as you will let me." They stood there, hands clasped, neither quite willing to take the next step but both aware that something significant had shifted. Finally, Willa squeezed his hands and stepped back, her cheeks flushed. "Your breakfast is getting cold." "I do not care about breakfast," Vincent said, but he released her hands and sat down obediently. "Though I suppose I should eat to keep up my strength for dealing with cattle rustlers and land speculators." Willa frowned. "You are going to confront them today." "Miguel and I are riding to Crawford's camp this morning to make our position clear. I will be back by evening." Vincent must have seen her worry because he added, "I will be fine, Willa. I promise." But when evening came and Vincent had not returned, Willa's worry transformed into fear. Miguel rode back alone as the sun was setting, his expression grim. "Where is Vincent?" Willa demanded, meeting him in the yard. There was trouble. Crawford had more men than we expected, and things got heated. Vincent sent me back to get the sheriff, but Mrs. Sawyer, you should know that they were threatening him. Crawford said if Vincent did not sell, he would make him regret it." Willa felt cold all over. "Where are they now?" "Crawford's camp, about 10 miles south. But you cannot go there, Mrs. Sawyer. It is too dangerous." "Then go get the sheriff," Willa said firmly. "I will wait here until you return." But the moment Miguel rode off toward San Bernardino, Willa went to her room and changed into her riding clothes. She had promised Vincent she would run if there was trouble, but that was before she admitted to herself that she loved him. She was not going to sit safely at the ranch while the man she loved was in danger. She saddled one of the horses, grateful for the riding skills her father had insisted she learn as a girl, and followed the southern road Miguel had described. The night was clear and cold, and Willa pushed the horse harder than was probably wise, her fear for Vincent overriding her natural caution. She found Crawford's camp by the light of their fire, hidden just beyond a rise in the landscape. Willa dismounted and crept closer, staying low and quiet. She could see Vincent standing in the center of a circle of men, his hands tied in front of him. Crawford stood nearby, gesturing angrily. "You are a fool, Flint. All you had to do was sell. Now you are going to watch as we burn your ranch to the ground, and then maybe you will be more cooperative." "You will not touch my ranch," Vincent said, his voice steady despite his circumstances. "The sheriff will have you arrested before you get halfway there. The sheriff is in Los Angeles dealing with some trouble we arranged. By the time he gets back, your ranch will be ashes, and you will be so eager to leave this county that you will sell for whatever we offer." Crawford stepped closer, his expression ugly. "Or maybe we will just make sure you cannot object at all." Willa's blood ran cold. She had to do something, but she was one woman against a dozen men. Then she remembered the rifle Vincent kept in the barn, the one he had taught her to shoot when she expressed interest in learning to protect herself. She did not have that rifle, but she did have her voice. "If anyone moves, I will shoot," Willa called out, stepping into the firelight with her hand positioned as if holding a weapon in the darkness behind her. It was a bluff and a terrible one, but it was all she had. The men spun toward her, hands moving toward their own weapons. Crawford laughed. "And who are you supposed to be? The housekeeper come to rescue her employer?" "I am someone who knows that the sheriff's deputy is currently riding toward San Bernardino with a full report of your activities," Willa said, hoping her voice sounded more confident than she felt. "I am also someone who is a very good shot and would be happy to demonstrate if you do not release Mr. Flint immediately." "Willa, what are you doing?" Vincent's voice was sharp with fear. "You should not be here." "I am not leaving you," Willa said firmly, her eyes never leaving Crawford. Crawford studied her, clearly trying to determine if she was actually armed. "You are bluffing. Try me and find out." Willa raised her arm higher as if steadying a rifle. "Mr. Crawford, you are already guilty of cattle theft and kidnapping. Do you really want to add murder to that list?" "Because I promise you, if you harm either of us, the entire county will know what you have done. Miguel has already gone for help and this camp is surrounded. You have lost." It was a magnificent bluff, and for a moment Willa thought it might work. But then one of Crawford's men stepped forward, squinting into the darkness behind her. "She does not have a weapon, boss. There is nothing there." Crawford's expression turned vicious. "Stupid woman. You should have stayed at the ranch where you belong." But before he could move toward her, the sound of hoofbeats filled the night. Miguel appeared over the rise with the sheriff and 6 deputies, all armed and looking thoroughly displeased. "I believe you gentlemen are under arrest," the sheriff announced. "Mr. Crawford, you have been causing trouble in my county for months, and I have finally got the evidence I need to put you away." The next hour was chaos as the sheriff's men rounded up Crawford and his associates. Willa ran to Vincent the moment his hands were freed, and he pulled her into a fierce embrace that knocked the breath from her lungs. "You were supposed to go to Miguel's," he said into her hair, his voice rough with emotion. "You were supposed to be safe." "I could not leave you," Willa replied, her arms tight around his waist. "I could not just do nothing while you were in danger." Vincent pulled back enough to look at her, his hands coming up to frame her face. "You terrified me. When I saw you step into that firelight, I thought my heart would stop. I am sorry, but I am not sorry, because you would have done the same for me. That is different. Why? Because you are worth protecting and I am not." Willa met his eyes, finding courage she did not know she possessed. "Because I finally understand, Vincent. I am worthy. I am worthy of safety and happiness and love. I am worthy of fighting for the people I care about. You taught me that. You made worthiness your daily affirmation until I started to believe it myself. And now I am telling you that I love you, and I am not going to apologize for it or pretend I do not deserve to feel this way." Vincent's expression was something Willa had never seen before, vulnerable and fierce and full of something that looked like wonder. "Say that again." "I love you, Vincent Flint. I love your kindness and your stubbornness and the way you see the best in people. I love how you care for your land and your men and how you made it your mission to show me my own worth. I love you, and I am not going to hide from it anymore." "Thank God," Vincent breathed, and then he was kissing her, gentle and desperate and perfect all at once. Willa kissed him back, pouring 2 years of grief and guilt and slowly returning hope into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he said. "I have loved you since the day you arrived at my ranch with determination in your eyes and pain in your heart. I have loved you through every dinner, every conversation, every moment I got to watch you slowly come back to life. I love you, Willa Sawyer, and I am never going to stop reminding you that you are worthy of every good thing this world has to offer, including you, especially me." Vincent kissed her again, softer this time, a promise rather than a declaration. "If you will have me, that is. I know this is sudden, and you may need time to think about what you want." Willa thought about Robert, about the love they had shared and the life they had built together. She thought about the guilt she had carried and the forgiveness she was finally allowing herself to accept, and she thought about Vincent, who had seen her at her lowest and had decided she was worth the effort of restoration. "I do not need time," she said. "I know what I want. I want you. I want this life. I want to build something new without feeling guilty about leaving the past behind. Is that selfish?" "It is human," Vincent said. "And human is exactly what you are allowed to be." The ride back to the ranch was slow and careful, with the sheriff's men escorting them to ensure there was no further trouble. By the time they arrived, dawn was breaking over the hills, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. Vincent helped Willa down from her horse and they stood together in the yard, exhausted and happy and whole. "What happens now?" Willa asked. Now we have breakfast because I am starving, then we rest, and then we figure out what comes next together." Vincent laced his fingers through hers. "That is, if you still want to be my housekeeper." Willa laughed, the sound surprising her with its lightness. "I think we both know I stopped being just your housekeeper weeks ago." "True. So what should I call you instead? How about Willa, the woman who loves you?" "Perfect," Vincent said, pulling her close again. "Though I was thinking maybe someday I could call you my wife if you were interested in that particular title." Willa pulled back to look at him, searching his face for any sign of uncertainty. "Are you proposing to me in your front yard at dawn after I just bluffed my way through an armed camp of criminals? I suppose I am. Is that terrible timing?" "It is perfect timing," Willa said and kissed him to prove it. "And yes, someday I would be honored to be your wife. But maybe we should court properly first, just to scandalize the town gossips." Vincent laughed, the sound rich and full of joy. "Whatever you want. We have all the time in the world now." The following months were a study in happiness that Willa had forgotten was possible. She and Vincent courted with all the proper decorum San Bernardino expected, though everyone in town could see they were thoroughly in love. The general store owner's wife took full credit for predicting the match, and Willa did not have the heart to correct her. Crawford and his men were tried and sentenced for cattle theft and kidnapping, ensuring Vincent's ranch was safe from further interference. The ranch thrived under Vincent's management, and Willa found herself taking on more responsibilities beyond just housekeeping. She helped with the books, managed correspondence with buyers, and even assisted Miguel with organizing the ranch hand schedules. She was no longer just an employee but a true partner in the operation. She also continued writing. Vincent had given her a beautiful leather-bound journal for Christmas, along with a promise that he would read anything she was willing to share. Her stories were getting better, stronger, and several local papers had even expressed interest in publishing some of her shorter pieces. The guilt she had carried for so long was not completely gone. She suspected it never would be, but it had transformed into something manageable, something that no longer defined her entire existence. In March of 1884, Vincent proposed properly, with a ring his grandmother had worn, and a speech that made Willa cry happy tears for the first time since before Robert's death. They were married in May in a simple ceremony at the San Bernardino church, surrounded by friends and ranch hands who had become like family. Miguel walked Willa down the aisle, and when Vincent said his vows, he added a line that was not traditional. "I promise to remind you every day that you are worthy of love, of happiness, of everything good this world has to offer. I promise to be your partner in all things, to build a life with you based on respect and trust and whatever comes our way. I promise to love you not because you are perfect, but because you are perfectly yourself." Willa's vows were equally heartfelt. "I promise to accept the love you offer without guilt or reservation. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your greatest supporter. I promise to keep choosing happiness, to keep choosing us every single day. And I promise to love you with everything I have, for all the days we are given." They honeymooned at the ranch, neither wanting to leave the place that had brought them together. They spent long days riding through the property, making plans for the future, and longer nights discovering each other in ways that left them breathless and amazed. Willa had loved Robert, but what she had with Vincent was different, deeper, perhaps, or simply more mature. It was the love of two people who had survived loss and found each other on the other side. One evening in June, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Vincent brought up a topic they had been dancing around for weeks. "Willa, how do you feel about children?" Willa leaned into his side, content and peaceful. "I think I would like them if they came, but I am also happy with just us if that is what life brings." "I agree," Vincent said. "Though I confess I have been imagining what our children might look like. I hope they have your eyes." "I hope they have your kindness," Willa countered. "The world needs more people like you. Our children would be lucky to have you as a mother. You have so much love to give, Willa. I see it in everything you do." Willa was quiet for a moment, then said, "I used to think I did not deserve another chance at happiness. I thought Robert's death was somehow punishment for being a difficult wife, for not being enough. And now I know that is not how life works. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to people who think they are unworthy. We do not earn love or loss. We just live through them and try to become better on the other side." She turned to look at Vincent. "You taught me that. You and your stubborn insistence on making worthy your daily affirmation." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "You taught me something too." "What?" "That loving someone is not just about grand gestures or perfect moments. It is about seeing them, really seeing them, and choosing to stand beside them anyway. It is about creating space for healing and growth and becoming. You made me a better man, Willa. You made worthy something we give each other, not something we have to earn alone." They sat together as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant reds and purples. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed and ranch hands called to each other, the sounds of life continuing in its steady rhythm. Willa thought about the woman she had been when she arrived at this ranch, broken and convinced she deserved nothing but pain. That woman felt like a stranger now, someone from another lifetime. In September, Willa discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She worried she would not be a good mother, that her past failures would somehow taint this new beginning. But Vincent held her through every moment of doubt, reminding her daily that she was more than capable, more than worthy. "Our child is already lucky," he told her one night, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "They get you as a mother. They get your strength and your kindness and your determination. They get a woman who knows how to survive and how to thrive. What more could anyone ask for? What if I make mistakes? You will. We both will. That is part of being human. But our child will never doubt that they are loved, and that is what matters most." Their son was born in May of 1885, exactly 1 year after their wedding. They named him Robert Vincent Flint, honoring both the past and the present. Willa cried when Vincent suggested the name, overwhelmed by his understanding and generosity. "He was part of your life," Vincent said simply. "He helped make you who you are. Our son should carry that legacy alongside our own." Little Robert was a healthy, loud baby who demanded attention and gave love freely. Watching Vincent with their son made Willa fall in love with him all over again. He was patient and gentle, singing silly songs and making faces to coax smiles from the baby. He changed diapers without complaint and walked the floor at night when Robert was fussy, insisting that Willa needed rest. "You do most of the work," he said when she protested. "The least I can do is share the nighttime duties." The ranch continued to prosper, and Willa found herself writing more as Robert grew. She published several stories in regional papers and even sold a longer piece to a magazine in San Francisco. Vincent insisted on reading everything she wrote, offering thoughtful feedback and endless encouragement. "You have a gift," he told her after reading her latest story. "The way you capture emotion, the way you make people feel understood, that is rare and precious. You are biased. I am honest. There is a difference." When Robert was 2, Willa discovered she was pregnant again. Their daughter, Sarah, was born in the spring of 1888, completing their family in a way that felt exactly right. She had her father's green eyes and her mother's determination, and from the moment she could walk, she was following Vincent around the ranch, insisting she could do everything the ranch hands could do. "That is your daughter," Vincent said with amusement as 3-year-old Sarah attempted to help Miguel mend a fence. "She gets that stubbornness from you," Willa countered, though she was smiling. "I believe stubbornness is something you and I share equally, my love. Life was not perfect. There were hard seasons and difficult decisions, sick cattle and financial pressures. There were moments when Willa still struggled with old guilt, when the memory of that last argument with Robert would surface unexpectedly. But now she had Vincent to remind her that she was human, that she was allowed to have complicated feelings, that her past did not define her present, and there were so many good moments. Robert's first day of school when he clung to Willa's skirts and then bravely let go. Sarah's determination to learn to ride at age 4, insisting she was big enough despite her short legs. Family dinners filled with laughter and conversation. Quiet evenings on the porch after the children were asleep, with Vincent's arm around her shoulders and the future stretching bright before them. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Vincent gave Willa a leather journal even finer than the first one. "For all the stories still to come," he said. "Both the ones you write and the ones we live." "I have been thinking," Willa said, running her fingers over the smooth leather, "about everything that brought us here, the pain and the healing and the growth. I think I might write about it someday. Not exactly our story, but something inspired by it, about a woman who learned to forgive herself and a man who made worthiness his daily practice." "I would read that story," Vincent said, "though I already know how it ends." "How?" "Happily. With 2 people who chose to love themselves and each other, and who built a life that honored both their past and their future." He pulled her close, kissing her softly, with worthy becoming not just a word but a way of living. Willa kissed him back, tasting salt air and sunshine and the particular flavor of contentment. I love you, Vincent Flint. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself. I love you, Willa Flint. Thank you for letting me. He pulled back to look at her, his green eyes full of affection and pride. And for the record, today's affirmation is the same as it has been every day for the past 10 years. You are worthy, you are loved, and you are exactly where you are supposed to be. I believe you, Willa said, and meant it. They sat together on the porch as the sun set over their land, over the life they had built from broken pieces and stubborn hope. In the house behind them, their children slept peacefully. Around them, the ranch hummed with the sounds of home. And inside Willa's chest, where guilt and grief had once lived, there was only gratitude and love and the bone-deep certainty that she had finally found her way home. The years continued to pass in the easy rhythm of a life well lived. Robert grew into a thoughtful boy who loved books as much as his mother, and showed his father's natural way with animals. Sarah remained as fierce and determined as ever, shocking the town by announcing at age 10 that she intended to run the ranch someday, and neither of her parents saw any reason to discourage her. Vincent expanded the ranch operations carefully, never overextending but always looking for ways to improve both the business and the lives of everyone who worked there. He built proper houses for his married ranch hands, established a school on the property so the workers' children could get an education, and created a profit-sharing system that ensured everyone benefited from the ranch's success. Other ranchers thought he was crazy, but Vincent did not care. My father taught me that you are only as strong as the people around you, he explained to Willa one evening. If the people who work for me are struggling, then I am failing as an employer and as a human being. Besides, happy workers are loyal workers. It is good business and good ethics all at once. Willa had long since stopped being surprised by her husband's capacity for kindness, but she never stopped appreciating it. She continued to write, publishing regularly and even completing a novel that found modest success. The story of a widow finding love again struck a chord with readers, and Willa received letters from women across the country thanking her for giving them hope. You are changing lives, Vincent told her when another stack of letters arrived. Your words are helping people heal, just like your presence helped me heal all those years ago. We helped each other, Willa corrected. That is how love works. It is not one person saving another. It is two people choosing to build something together. On their 20th anniversary, Vincent organized a celebration at the ranch, inviting everyone who had been part of their journey. Miguel was there with his family, looking older but still strong. The general store owner and his wife attended, along with half the town of San Bernardino. Robert, now 17 and preparing to leave for college in the fall, gave a toast that made his parents cry. My parents taught me that love is a daily choice, he said, his voice steady and strong. They taught me that worthy is not something you are or are not, but something you decide to be. They taught me that the past shapes us but does not define us, and that forgiveness starts with forgiving yourself. I hope someday I find a love like theirs, one built on respect and trust, and the stubborn insistence on seeing the best in each other, even when it is hard. Sarah, 15 and as bold as ever, added her own toast. And they taught me that I can be anything I want to be, even if the world thinks women belong in the kitchen. Well, Ma is in the kitchen when she wants to be, and she is also a published author and the real brains behind this ranch's bookkeeping. She taught me that worthy means knowing your own value and never apologizing for it. So here is to my parents, who are probably the most disgustingly in love people I know. And I mean that as the highest compliment. The party lasted well into the night, filled with music and dancing, and the kind of joy that comes from a community that genuinely cares for each other. But eventually, the guests departed, and Vincent and Willa found themselves alone on their porch once more, the same spot where they had shared so many significant conversations over the years. 20 years, Willa marveled, leaning against Vincent's solid warmth. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I arrived here, so broken I did not think I would ever feel whole again. And now I am more than whole. I am complete. Not because you completed me, she added quickly, but because you gave me space to complete myself. You saw worth in me when I saw only failure. You loved me through the healing until I could love myself. Vincent kissed the top of her head, a gesture so familiar it felt like coming home. You did the same for me, you know. I was drowning in responsibility and loneliness when you arrived. I had forgotten how to see value in anything beyond work and duty. You reminded me that life is meant to be lived, not just endured. We saved each other. We chose each other, Vincent corrected gently. Every single day we keep choosing each other. That is the real miracle. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the house, they could hear Robert and Sarah arguing amicably about something, their voices a familiar soundtrack to family life. The ranch was quiet, the cattle settled, the land peaceful under the vast California sky. I need to tell you something, Willa said eventually. I have been thinking about it for a while, and I think I am finally ready. What is it? I forgive myself, fully, completely, without reservation. I forgive myself for the argument with Robert. I forgive myself for surviving when he did not. I forgive myself for all the time I spent thinking I did not deserve happiness. I forgive myself for being human and flawed and imperfect. She turned to look at Vincent, tears streaming down her face but a smile on her lips. I forgive myself, Vincent. After all these years, I finally, truly forgive myself. Vincent pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as she cried tears of release and relief. I am so proud of you, he murmured into her hair. I know how hard you have worked to get here. I know how much courage it takes to let go of guilt you have carried for so long. You helped me get here. Your daily affirmations, your stubborn insistence that I was worthy even when I did not believe it. You loved me into healing, Vincent. You made worthy not just a word but a practice, a way of being. Willa pulled back to look at him, her eyes still wet but shining. I love you so much. Thank you for never giving up on me. I love you too, and I never could have given up on you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Willa Flint. You are my partner, my love, my home. You are worthy of every good thing this world has to offer, and I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget it. They kissed under the stars. 20 years of love and partnership, and choosing each other distilled into a single perfect moment. When they finally pulled apart, Vincent stood and offered Willa his hand. Come to bed, my love. Tomorrow is a new day, and I have a daily affirmation to deliver. Willa laughed and took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. What will tomorrow's affirmation be? The same as it has always been. Willa Flint is worthy. She is loved. She is exactly where she is supposed to be, and I am the luckiest man alive to call her my wife. And Willa Flint loves her husband more than words can express. He is kind and patient and stubborn in all the best ways. He made worthy his daily affirmation until she believed it herself, and she will spend the rest of her life being grateful that he saw her when she could not see herself. They walked into the house together, hand in hand, ready for whatever the future would bring. Behind them, the ranch settled into night, a testament to everything they had built together. And above them, the stars shone bright and constant, bearing witness to a love that had transformed two broken people into something whole and beautiful and worthy. The years that followed were full and rich. Robert went to college and studied veterinary medicine, eventually returning to the ranch to care for the cattle and other animals. He married a kind woman named Elizabeth, and they gave Vincent and Willa their first grandchild, a boy they named Vincent after his grandfather. Sarah shocked no one by taking over much of the ranch's daily operations by the time she was 25, proving to be a natural leader with her father's fairness and her mother's sharp mind. She eventually married a ranch hand named Thomas who was smart enough to appreciate her strength, and together they continued to build on the legacy Vincent and Willa had started. Willa published 3 more novels over the years, each one exploring different aspects of love, loss, and healing. She became known as a voice for widows and women who felt lost, offering hope through her words in the same way Vincent had offered hope through his daily affirmations. She received hundreds of letters from readers, and she tried to respond to each one, sharing the lessons she had learned about worthiness and forgiveness. Vincent gradually handed over more ranch responsibilities to Sarah and Robert, though he never fully retired. He loved the land too much to step away completely. But he made more time for Willa, for grandchildren, for quiet mornings and peaceful evenings. He never stopped his daily affirmations, finding new ways to remind Willa of her worth even after decades of marriage. "You are worthy," he would say over breakfast or while they walked through the garden or before they fell asleep at night. "You are loved. You are exactly where you are supposed to be." And Willa would smile and respond, "And you made me believe it. You made worthy your daily affirmation until it became my reality." On their 40th anniversary, the family gathered at the ranch for a massive celebration. Robert and Elizabeth's 3 children ran wild with Sarah and Thomas's 2 daughters, filling the house with laughter and energy. Miguel's grandchildren, now working on the ranch themselves, joined the festivities. The town of San Bernardino sent representatives, and the local paper wrote a feature about the Flints and their 4 decades of partnership. Vincent gave a speech at dinner, his voice still strong despite his 70 years. 40 years ago, a broken woman arrived at my ranch looking for a fresh start. She thought she was just applying for a job as a housekeeper, but she ended up giving me everything I did not know I needed. She brought light to my home, purpose to my work, and love to my heart. She taught me that strength comes in many forms and that the bravest thing we can do is forgive ourselves for being human. He turned to Willa, taking her hand. "My daily affirmation has always been simple. Willa is worthy." For 40 years, I have reminded her of this truth, and I will continue reminding her for however many years we have left. She is worthy of love, of happiness, of peace. She is worthy of everything good this world has to offer. And I am worthy too, because she loved me enough to let me be part of her healing, her journey, her life. Willa stood, her eyes bright with tears, and kissed him soundly to the applause and cheers of their family. "You are my daily affirmation, Vincent Flint. You are the proof that love can heal, that worthy is a choice we make, and that the right partnership can transform everything. I love you today exactly as much as I loved you yesterday, and I will love you even more tomorrow." Their grandchildren made faces at the display of affection, but their children smiled, recognizing the deep bond that had sustained their parents through 4 decades of life. This was what love looked like, not in its first passionate bloom but in its mature, tested, enduring form. This was the love that survived loss and celebrated joy, that chose daily to see the best in each other, that made worthy not just a word but a way of being. As the party continued around them, Vincent and Willa slipped away to their favorite spot on the porch. The sun was setting over the hills, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. The land stretched before them, familiar and beloved, a testament to everything they had built together. "You ever regret it?" Vincent asked quietly. "Leaving Sacramento, starting over, taking a chance on a lonely rancher with more hope than sense?" "Never," Willa said without hesitation. "You gave me everything, Vincent. You gave me a home, a purpose, a family. You gave me myself back. How could I ever regret that? I gave you very little. You did the hard work of healing yourself. You gave me the space to heal. You gave me daily affirmations until I believed them. You gave me love without conditions or expectations. That is everything, Vincent. That is more than most people ever receive." Vincent pulled her close, and they sat together as the sun disappeared below the horizon. They had lived a good life, a worthy life, full of love and purpose and the kind of deep satisfaction that comes from building something meaningful together. They had raised good children who were raising good children of their own. They had created a ranch that served as a model for ethical treatment of workers and animals. They had loved each other through joy and sorrow, through easy times and hard ones, through all the daily moments that comprise a shared life. "I love you, Willa Flint," Vincent said. "Thank you for saying yes to a fresh start all those years ago. Thank you for being brave enough to let yourself heal. Thank you for loving me and building this life with me. You are the best decision I ever made." "I love you too, Vincent Flint. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself. Thank you for making worthy your daily affirmation. Thank you for teaching me that forgiveness starts with forgiving ourselves and that we are all deserving of love and happiness, no matter what our past holds." Willa rested her head on his shoulder, perfectly content. "You made me whole, not by completing me but by helping me complete myself. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." They sat together as the stars emerged, the same stars that had witnessed their first kiss, their wedding, every significant moment of their 40 years together. And in the house behind them, their legacy continued, children and grandchildren carrying forward the lessons about worthiness and love, and the daily choice to see the best in yourself and others. Vincent and Willa lived many more years together, each day a quiet affirmation of the life they had built. They grew old together, their hair turning silver, their steps slower but their love as strong as ever. Vincent never stopped his daily affirmations, and Willa never stopped believing them. They had learned the most important lesson of all, that worthy was not something you earned through perfection, but something you claimed through daily practice, through choosing to love yourself and others with grace and compassion. When their time finally came, years later, they left behind a family that understood love as a verb, something you did rather than simply felt. They left behind a ranch that operated on principles of fairness and dignity. And they left behind a story, preserved in Willa's novels and in the memories of everyone who knew them, about how two broken people found each other and chose, every single day, to make worthy their shared affirmation. In the end, that was their greatest achievement, not the successful ranch or the published books or the thriving family, but the simple, profound act of seeing each other truly and choosing love anyway. They whispered their worthiness to each other every day until it became truth, until it transformed them both, until it created a love story that would inspire generations to come. And on quiet California evenings, when the sun sets over the hills of San Bernardino, you can almost hear it still. The daily affirmation of two people who learned that worthy is not something you are, but something you choose to be together.